When we get to the rewards or the water houses, where you have to have the feelings and live, you have the emotions that you're taking in, the impressions of things, and if there's guilt, they go deep. If there's sorrows, they go deep. It's much more irrational, more emotional areas. So there's 4 types of rewards where we look for security at home. One part of rewards, we look for trust in a relationship. That's another sense of emotional stability or depth. And we look for consciousness of what's right, what's wrong, or being dedicated or backing up someone where there's a sort of conscientiousness in the 12th house. Well, if you have the Mars in the 12th house and you're trying to be conscientious and trying to understand how other people should be too, it can be very annoying or isolating because many people aren't conscientious. So you're trying to save gorillas in the forest in Africa. And then there's other people just trying to kill them. Whoa. So you want to help minority rights. And there's other people who don't want it. Like, there's a question of having to be conscientious and aware of what you're doing, because you can take on things that are bigger than you. You have to be aware of how to do this. So transforming, oh, that was wrong, I better do this differently. I didn't fit in, I better do it differently. That's the water of the 12th house. It's kind of feeling where you belong or where you don't belong, or what's being demanded of you or not out in the world. But the 8th house, it's in the house of sensation and trust. It's about sharing, about trusting, and there's deep feelings within that. When you have Mars, there's a push to control or to have a commitment. We're here, let's get married, we'll lock it in, it's there, everything will be locked in together and we'll work that together. There's a push to have those things. And whether that push is noble or not will determine on how easy or difficult you can do things. But often there's a push to see how to use other people's energies to make things happen. I don't have enough myself. We can do this together. You put yours in, we'll make this happen. And that can be very good, very charismatic, but it's the pushy. It's not always giving the other person as much choice as you. You'd argue to prove your point. In the 4th house of security, you have the aggression and things in home. You want things to be the way you want at home, but that means you can get deep in your security and you're pushing for your security, but you can easily be threatened by stupid little things around the house, or by other people not paying attention to how you want it to be in the house. So it's not bossy like the Mars up in the 10th, but it is easily threatened or easily provoked when there's anything that threatens the security. Such as somebody becoming a teenager and getting interested in sex might threaten the security of someone with a Mars. They'd be trying to say, you have to do this, you have to be with you, have to watch, or things can happen, and you're there thinking, I want things to happen. So we're not exactly defining, we're just touching and making associations between each things. But doing that is expanding it and leaving it open, so when someone has an experience, it fits in. You start to see, oh, it's working that way, and then it's easier to get more specific about it. But if you just say a specific Mars in this house, you take a traditional meaning, it just means anger on this, then you could get it wrong so easily with Mars, because it can happen in so many different layers. You get so many layers of experience or levels. Okay, it's worth going in the keywords, because you're just going to see Mars is adding the force and adding the energy and adding the drive to be involved with the keywords that are there. And they're more specific. Mars in the 3rd house, you're going to be forcing expression. You're going to be strong with your expression, strong with it, argumentative and restless, but easily argumentative with the Mars in the 3rd house, or pushing their ideas on everyone else. I got to get this out of me. You're not listening. What's wrong with you? Like, it's going to be pushing it in that way. We get the Mars in the 2nd house. You're pushing your resources. You're either using money for power. I'm proving I can buy this. I prove I got it. I haven't got it. It's pushing to get the things it wants for itself, but also it can push too hard and spend too much too fast, or force using money for power, forcing things, just because I want to get it, without being aware of other people needing money for other things. I have to get this. I got to do this. I need the skateboard. You know, like, or I need to get the I need to get the iPhone, or I need to get these apps or stuff. I'm pushing to get. There's going to be a drive to get those things. There's a tendency to push a little more than you can afford, or a lot more than you can afford. So you had alcohol, or you had gambling problems to any of these things, and you start to see them really go out of control. Okay. So when we get to the next one of the identity, it's going to be, I identify, I want to be physical, I want to be fit, I want to be sexy, I'm pushing things, I can do things, I'm the one who can do things, don't get in my way. It has that personal adrenaline. I got to do it. I got to make this happen. So, or how come I didn't do it? Like, the undertow is the negative side of it, but there's a need. The Mars is pushing and making your identity a little more aggressive, a little more forceful than the average person, than someone with Mars somewhere else. Whew. That means your identity is a little less tolerant, it's a little more competitive, but it should be a little more physical. But it's not, you're going to have the adrenaline, it's not necessarily going to fit in anyone else. It's just going to demand what you demand. And the world still goes on, like it's just tends to go that way. So you're pumped up with yourself when you're going into the 12th house. The 12th house is where you're going out in the world and you're in the elevator. You just go in the elevator. There's 3 other people there. Do you look at each other? You know, don't relate to them or whatever. Do you just ignore them? What do you do when you're in a place where there's a bunch of other people, you don't know them, and how do you interact? What do you do when you're going in a place where you are reacted? You know, like, it's that consciousness of, whoa, I get into a room, I see a room full of people, where do I sit? Or who do I align with? Do I see a friend? Do I go near a friend? Do I sit in the back? Do I sit in the front? What, like, part of that's the second house of seeing more. But when you're going in to see friends and going into social situations, where do you align yourself? Where do you put your energy? Because you're going to reinforce some things, you're going to reinforce others. There's a tendency to be really sensitive to things that are wrong and not want to be reinforced, or have to pull oneself away from the difficult or the angry or the violent to get to something more peaceful. But there's also a tendency for things to disrupt your world. It's not a lucky place for Mars because there's a tendency, you have to be conscious, but it's easy for things to go wrong. Tickets, fights, arguments, fear. There's easy, weak muscles. There's easy for things to go wrong, and it forces a conscientiousness. But I mean, normally, this is the place of accident prone, where there's difficulties around passion or sex, where things don't come easily. Just because it doesn't come easily doesn't mean you have to be a bad influence. If I can't get it, well, what's the matter? I get it anyway. That would be a negative. A positive, if I can't get it, I'm going to have to work. I'm going to have to do something, and sooner or later, maybe I can align somewhere and get it, or accomplish some things. They usually need to direct one's energy into a conscientious way, and when they do, they get pumped on it. When not, they can be supporting the gang or the other group in a conscientious way. Like, if you put down one of your kids' friends, you could make the friend immortal, or like they're idealize them more, and they don't see it. It takes time to see it. Okay. Yeah, that's all of these things. When you're working with someone's chart, it becomes so personal, live. It's not hard to go into this route because you've got the experiences, you've got the situations to see how it's working. When we're doing it abstractly to cover everybody, it's a little bit more fuzzy because it's like all people do this, but if you say, well, this blonde person, this person with then looks like this, or this person with a strong jaw, or a weak jaw, or strong, like, you can just, there's many ways of classifying. But okay, so that's what we're doing. We're just putting Mars in the Earth and trying to see these unique classifications that we want to observe and do enough charts so we're seeing that this is so. Oh, it's this. They use the Mars this way. So I'm always learning. I'm seeing, Mars is going like this, and then I realize, they're using it differently than I would have thought. Look at that. And that would work for them. So then I say, I add one more thing to my list of how it works. But Mars in the 11th house is going to push for friendships, but it can get competitive friendships and enemies because of it. So You push with friendships, what do you have to do? You have to be part of the team. You have to go where the group goes. You have to live up to them. You have to wear the same jackets, have the same logos, do similar things to be part of the group. And the push is to be part of a group or angry about not fitting into a group and getting a contrary group. But still, there's a team or a group reaction and who you relate to. If you're hanging around with people that are trouble, your friendships could get you in trouble. If you're hanging around with people that are good, your friendships could challenge you to do noble things. But the Mars being there, there's going to be forceful situations and aggressive things. You meet a good friend, you try and sleep with them? Or is it enough to just be on the same team or doing something together? So there's puzzles that come out of dealing with friendships. And we have all of these areas in a chart. Everyone has these concerns. It's just the Mars is tipping it to be a little bit pushy in that area, a little bit forceful in that area. Not a little bit more forceful, it's hugely more forceful than some other people. So you won't see yourself as more forceful, but other people certainly will. So when Mars is in the 10th house, to push for career, to push for authority, push for honor. Oh, it's got to be my team. I got to lead this. I got to be in control of this. We'll make this happen. To take on authority, take on responsibility, and be pushing to make it happen. Using resources like this 10th house, it's the business house, it's the status house, but it's also where you accomplish your things, but you have to use whatever you got to accomplish things. So it's able to push people around to get things done. Or drive oneself till one can be really efficient and get things done. But it's going to be fighting for their own authority. A teenager growing up is going to be fighting, and you don't tell me what I have to do. They're going to be fighting to prove their own thing. If they have good parents, they'll get guided right. If they don't, they'll be fighting it. Get out to get their own job. Live their own way. You can't tell me what to do. I'm doing it. But there's, at the same time, someone else may want to, parents get in trouble and they want to go do things and fix things for their parents. They want to do what's honorable and deal with it. So in our societies, where we got drugs and alcohol so prevalent these days, really, it's easy to see how any of these things get spoiled and how it's negative for someone. But then the challenge is, how do you straighten up your life? How do you get it working properly again? How do you restore your innocence? How do you get your energy going in a way that works for you? And once you see where your Mars is, you can see sometimes you may have to develop other areas to make it work better, but you still see the direction like that your Mars is going to go. So in the house of morality or ethics, or a group consensus, the team believes in this, we should be living this way, we should be doing this or that way. And sometimes the morals can be stifling, sometimes they can be liberating, but there's going to be a push to be moralistic about what you're doing. I'm doing what you tell me I'm not doing something right, I'm going to fight because I think I'm doing what's right. We're part of the team, I didn't do anything wrong, we're doing this, so you shouldn't be doing this. There's going to be fights over what's right and wrong. This is the ethics, and do you live up to it? Usually you push for what's right. But if someone accuses you of being wrong, you're going to fight because how dare you say I'm wrong? Okay, you'll get your pride going. You're trying to find different ways to react to prove this, that that's the Mars going out. You still have your sun, you still have all the other planets going on. This is just how your energy goes out and nerves that trigger you off. Sometimes a person might have everything together, and only one of these, and you're going through these categories, and one of these categories they don't relate to. Or one of these categories they have a total negative or different reaction to it, and they'll have a block on one of these levels in each of the houses or signs. And when if you find that, you see what therapy is needed. You see what has to be worked to fix that layer, to make it better so the whole thing works. If you're somewhat moral, selectively moral, or just justifying whatever you're doing, that might be a much more foggy morality or ethics and bring a lot of different people into play than if you're clearly just doing good things.